must be shortened. Partners must be assured of their benefits without interference from succeeding government. Project must be rid of conflict of interest and minimum resistance from end users. It's noteworthy to mention that amidst the ongoing effort to tackle this challenge, the Central Bank of Nigeria announced the creation of the Infrastructure Corporation, the InfraCorp, in October 2020. We sincerely appreciate our esteemed guest speaker, Mr. Okuyo, Senior Partner, Africa 50 Infrastructural Acceleration Fund, who has accepted to share with us extensive insight as he speaks on the ongoing effort as well as the role of financial inclusion in bridging the
gap has been identified, our role has been defined. I think we should just all engage in this conversation today and leave here with different results to make things happen. Thank you very much, sir. Next, I would like to recognize a special set of people. These people I call the founding fathers of CIBN. Now, I want to say there are many institutions and there are many institutes. There is none like the CIBN. Can I have a round of applause, please? Because this institute is built on solid rock foundation. And when you have a solid rock foundation, it's because you have founding fathers who are themselves people who are standing with the gap. So without more to do, I'd like to recognize first someone I call my daddy, Mr. J.O. Ekundayo, FCIB. You're very welcome, sir. Next, I'd like to recognize Mr. Lauye Jayola, FCIB. You're welcome, sir. Dr. Shego Aino, OFR, FCIB. You're very welcome, sir. Professor Shego Ajibola, PhD, FCIB. You're welcome, sir. Dr. Uche Messiah Ulowu, PhD, MNI, FCIB. You're very welcome, sir. My very Oga, who is with us online, Dr. Bayo Williams Olubiri, FCIB. Thank you very much, sir, for all you've done for the institute. And I'd like to also recognize a past registrar and chief executive, Olóyè Ẹ̀sán Ògúnléyé, FCIB. You're very welcome, sir. Right, we will be moving on quickly and we'll be taking the special remarks from the chairman of the occasion, Alhaji Sulaiman Barau, OON, FCIB.
President and Chairman of the Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, the first Vice President, the second Vice President, the National Program, past Presidents, Council members, fellows of the Institute, Minister, and Chief Executive, my friend, distinguished special guest, Mrs. Osunjo Okunchida, who incidentally was my colleague at Continental Martin back in the 80s, but we never interacted. Our lead of today, many of whom are my former professional colleagues, my friends, who are protocol we have gone first. But today we are on this today, so we will bless you and properly while you know. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me also as well welcome the former governor of our state who has I'm fully honored today to be part of this year's fellowship Investiture. Let me thank the President of the CIBN and as well seize the opportunity to congratulate him on his elevation and that position. Let me thank my friend, musician, Dr. Rodovi, for inviting me today to this event. It's great honor that I really appreciate. Therefore, welcome the President, and welcome you all this morning to this event. I want to also congratulate the distinguished recipients, particularly of the Fellowship Award for this prestigious institute of your family. I want to tell the institute acknowledging the numerous strides you have all achieved in your various fields of endeavor that led to your recognition today. Your immense contribution towards the growth and development of the CIBN individually and collectively is the reason why we are being honored today. I congratulate you again. For me, the CIBN is an institute that is deeply rooted in excellence, particularly in skills development of members as well as contributing positively to the banking, financial and business environment, and ultimately to the economic development of our dear country. I therefore salute the CIBN as become today the model of self-regulated institutions in Nigeria, as well as the model for skills development and administration in Nigeria. I can attest to that because even before I was myself being an honorary fellow, I have actively participated in the activities of this group, particularly in support of the CIBN Bankers Committee then, when it was the Secretariat of the Monetary Official Subcommittee of CIBN in the 1978 and 2000s. I've since then observed the outstanding succession structure of the Institute, the offices, particularly of the President, council members, and the registrar. This is not only commendable, but has enabled it to discharge its functions sustainably and effectively. One of the more visible functions of the CIBN is its programs and training activities. Here are these are sets of our programs designed to improve and broaden as well as building skills in our banking sector and the broader financial services sector. In this respect, CIBN has continually grown beyond its traditional approach and embraced much more innovative approaches. I'll mention these three areas that are personally aware of all involved. The first is role in under the Financial System Strategy 2020 of Central Bank of Nigeria. CIBN played, and I believe it still actively playing the role of guiding the human capital stream of the FSS 2020 in its effort to structure learning and application to supply the needed skills that is consistent with Nigeria's desire to develop a financial system that will power Nigeria's objective of becoming one of the top 20 countries in the world before Nigeria 2020, but ultimately when we achieve that objective. CIBN as well as the second area that has contributed is I recently attended a graduation ceremony for a program at Bangalore University in Wales, and I was amazed to see quite a number of Nigerians under arrangements that have been organized by CIBN in partnership with that university. To turn out to graduate, that we have to provide the guideline activities that are needed. That was shocking to me, and it is most interesting. Finally, CIBN has championed the Global Institute of Chartered Business. I think the first gathering of that Global Institute was hosted here. I believe that that will enable CIBN to tap from whatever is happening in those advanced countries who use that is associated with it. And therefore, all of today's our list and other members of the institute and CIBN to deliver on this mandate, particularly associates his mission, going forward so that he can achieve his objective. The theme of today's lecture, the president has said, is quite topical. It is topical because it is a completion of a huge infrastructure deficit that we have. It's not a recent effort of government to bridge this gap. There is still huge funding that needs to be filled. And I'm sure that this people will do a lot of justice so we know what is required. And I believe the financial system, the banking sector, has a role to play. Secondly, by broadening the role of financial institutions beyond just banking, it is commendable. I believe that banks have played a key role in supporting the economic development of Nigeria, but the provision of the huge capital to finance the deficit for infrastructure development has to come from outside the banking system to the broader capital market, and of course, the mentioned sector where there's huge untapped funds that needs to be capital brought in for various development this business. I believe that the vibrant fixed income capital market, and I'm not the one said here, will help to raise a huge pool of assets, pool of capital outside the banking system. And what available through the pension source will help to bridge the gap in the provision of huge infrastructure that is needed to develop our economy. And therefore, thank the Ministry for choosing this topic. I welcome the guest speaker and look forward to distinguish the delivery and the discussions that will follow. I congratulate the CIBN today. I congratulate our list, many of them who are my friends and professional colleagues, and I look forward to a fruitful relationship. Thank you very much.
And the question which I believe will serve as a veritable pathway towards revamping the Nigerian economy, making its impact as a forerunner in the gospel of economic upliftment of the nation. In recent times, we have witnessed the global economic slide with various sovereign governments tasked with the daunting duty of pursuing economic growth. The next case for that. The sustainability of the working economy goes hand in hand with the efficiency of several subsectors, chief amongst which is being a workable infrastructural plan that caters to the development of that nation. Various economic theories and practices have all pointed out the one undeniable fact, and that is that infrastructure is vital to the development of any economy and also its prosperity. Therefore, accelerated infrastructure development via selected profitable investment has become a tool in the hands of many economies. Developed nations have dived into various large-scale developmental projects that have geared towards upgrading and maintaining existing infrastructure, which in turn stimulates economic cooperation. Developing countries are also inclined towards putting in place certain developmental projects that speed up industrialization and urbanization processes. This has become an imperative task for many, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, which ravaged many countries, some of which are yet to recover from the devastating effects of the collapsed economic activities. Strengthening infrastructure development, particularly in Africa, is key to establishing tighter economic ties and regional economic integration that ensures the continued development of the nation. The expansion of trade, people-to-people exchange, as well as capital flows between several neighboring countries and regions demand greater and more sustainability and more sustained infrastructural capacity. The KPMG has stated that by the year 2030, the global demand for infrastructural development and investment would reach about $50 trillion. In Africa, there has been a dearth of infrastructural development, resulting in certain deficits that seemingly hinders regional connectivity. The president of African Development Bank, Dr. Akin Adesina, recently stated that although the bank has committed over 44 billion to infrastructure across Africa in the last 6 years, there is a huge financing gap of between 68 and 108 billion annually. Within the context of Nigeria, education and healthcare facilities, there is a lack of proper road network and poor maintenance of existing roads, and the stagnancy of very slow progress in the expansion of road, and it just calls me to see we have. Also, commercial banks and merchant banks have been known to be responsible for funding major construction companies, including the MTN Telecoms expansion of the regular and framework. These are construction companies. We also have them financing the Dangote Group, including the refinery, the cement, and other fertilizer factories. And so, yes, we have a lot of things to do. So, as my president said, I think
in Nigeria. And these are caused because there's a lack of basic services. Power, water. You're probably thinking water, that's obvious. If you give your child dirty water, the risk of dysentery or diarrhea or something else, waterborne disease, is obvious. But why electricity? I'll tell you why electricity. It's not because we all want to have light and live in air-conditioned environments. It's very simple. The International Energy Agency reported that in 2000, just to give you this statistic, about 800,000 Africans, mostly women and children, died because of air pollution. That's inhaling noxious fumes. Let me make that even more graphic for you. Imagine the lady could be in the village somewhere, cooking in a very confined space, using dirty charcoal, using dirty firewood that emits a lot of carbon monoxide. And that's what happens, they inhale that and it kills them. And of that 800,000, about 500,000 of those people were, again, women and children, and that happened in the home. So being able to have electricity that can substitute us having to use charcoal and dirty fuels, some of the biomass that we use, has to be a good thing for us. There are huge opportunities as well in terms of the tech age. The very fact that we survived COVID is also because of technology advancement. I don't know how many businesses deals I did online. I didn't have to travel, like, unfortunately, I'm having to do so much again. For a period of time, it was actually peace. Sometimes it's nice just sitting in one place for a week without being in 3 or 4 different countries. So technology has gone a long way. Even here in Nigeria, Nigeria actually has given birth to some of Africa's major unicorns in the fintech space. So these opportunities are huge, but we are still, when you look at Africa relative to the rest of the world, we're still not as deeply penetrated as we should be to take advantage of the leapfrogging effect of technology. On the logistics point, I think I can use Nigeria as an example. We can see our ports, especially in Lagos. The capacity simply is not there, and all the ancillary infrastructure, for example, to bring the goods services to the port and clear them out are equally not there. So the challenges are clearly significant. So we move on to talking about climate change, and for those of you who know, this photograph was taken, I think, last week or so in Yenagoa in Bayelsa State. There have been severe floods all across the north of Nigeria. We've seen them in the east and also in the south-south. So the point is, look, this talk about climate change, and we will talk about the implications for infrastructure, because it is significant. It's not somebody making it up. It's real. It's affecting people out there. Can we look at the next slide, please? So the impact, for example, we're seeing various things. There's heavy rainfall. And by the way, this heavy rainfall did not start just in the last week when we saw these floods. I remember, and I'm going back maybe to 2010, around 2010, 2011, at the time running and building parts of the Lekki Toll Road. And I will never forget, it was in June of one of those years, and the rainfall that we had in one particular day was the rainfall that we would have expected in the entire month. That was itself a warning that things were not, all okay. And today we see everything, droughts in different parts of the continent. What this picture shows, if you can see it, is just to give you a sense that it's all over. And this isn't an exhaustive list. Something like about 5,000 people, I think, have died so far from the impacts of flooding. In Nigeria alone, about 600 people, I believe. We've had cyclonic weather in southern Africa. The impact of the droughts and other things in the Horn of Africa has displaced and has affected about 8 million plus people. This is real. As a consequence, we need to take it seriously when we think about our infrastructure solutions. And you know something else? It isn't just that floods and other things come and they displace people's homes, they destroy our crops and affect, our food production. It also affects our health, because with water comes water-borne diseases. And I'm hearing really terrible stories of what we're even seeing in Nigeria, in the south and in other places where the flooding has occurred, of dead bodies exhumed, from their graves and floating out there. You can only imagine what that's doing to polluting the water sources. So it's a very serious problem, and we have to think if there are things that we can do to deal with them. And I'll try and share with you a few insights on that. But what this slide is telling you is, and as bankers and financial institutions or investors, whichever side of the equation you sit, there is and there will continue to be an increased emphasis on investing and financing sustainable infrastructure. I presume you probably all know that COP27, so the next climate change summit, comes up in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt week after next. I assure you there will be a lot of talk about climate change, including what we call having a fair and just transition for Africa. I will come to that point later on. But if you begin to think about, okay, so what does this mean for infrastructure? We then have to start talking about the potential strategies that, as financiers of infrastructure, we should be thinking about. Power supply, we know, is a very big issue. We've already agreed that from the initial assumptions. But it's what type of power supply we should be going for. And the pressure is on to invest more in renewable energy, the likes of solar power, maybe wind power, perhaps more hydro, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, there is a reality, and this is where this just and fair transition discussion comes in the sense that not all renewable energy can give us the base load power that we need to develop. So Africa, Nigeria, and all of us, we deserve to develop our economies as well. So we've got to find the right energy mix, but moving more towards renewable energy, especially as solutions like storage of power begin to come into being. Because the reality is that, look, the sun, we all say, let's go and do solar power. Great, we should. But the sun doesn't shine 24/7. So when the sun's gone, where's the power coming from if you don't have storage solutions? The wind doesn't blow 24/7 either. And sometimes the velocity of the wind changes. So again, this is the way we need to think a bit more creatively. And the idea about the just transition is being able to focus on natural resources like gas, which we have a lot of on the continent. But you'll find that part of the strategies are some people, especially in the developed world institutions, are saying there should be no financing whatsoever given to fossil fuels. What we argue, and Africa 50 is one of those voices, is we do say that, look, we need to allow Africa the time to grow and develop. By the way, currently only 4% or thereabouts of global emissions it comes from Africa. It's not us that caused the problem. Now, I am not saying that means we should not care about it, because we do need to care about it. We live in this world, and even though we pollute the least, we are impacted the most. The stats actually show that. So it's about finding the right balance that allows us to get that mix and still grow. We also need to have strategies that focus on climate resilience infrastructure. What do I mean by that? I'm going to give an example from my personal experience, and I'm going to try and adapt it to this environment here. This example I'm talking about, back in the day, mid-90s, I was in the water industry. I sat on the board, and I was also the financial controller for the region that was responsible for what we called the Izmit BOT water project. That was a project that cost about $1 billion to build. It was at the time the largest privately financed BOT in the world. We built a dam in Yuvajik, which is the northeastern part of Turkey. We built a 420 liter a day water treatment plant in that same region, several pumping stations, reservoirs, and a 150-kilometer pipeline that stretched from Kocaeli province in Turkey westward almost to Istanbul. Now, the point about this is when that plant was designed, it was designed to withstand the highest, at least a very high threshold in earthquakes. And people were saying, well, why are you spending all that money? Because of course it costs you more when you put more strength, I guess, into what you're doing, more resilience. But lo and behold, in 1999, Turkey was hit, at least that province, the northeast, was hit with an earthquake. It measured, I think it was 7.4 on the Richter scale. Now, the official death count was 20,000. The unofficial death count was 40,000. But here's the good news. That plant I described to you, the Izmit BOT, the entire infrastructure, because we built it to a standard that was designed to withstand a shock like that. So we had the pre-knowledge that it was a potential earthquake zone. And we said, if that ever happened, what's going to be the consequences? As a consequence, we built it, and there wasn't even barely a hairline crack in all the concrete works. And I'm pleased to tell you that that plant was the only source of clean, safe, potable water supplies during the transition period whilst the recovery from the earthquake was going on. That's what I mean by resilient infrastructure. So how can that work in the situation here? Now, I'm going to talk, I hope, sensitively about the current flooding situation in Nigeria. Now, I'm saying this because, by the way, if you're following global news, it isn't only in Nigeria we've seen this kind of disastrous floods. We've seen them in Europe, we've seen them in the US, and in various other parts of the world. So flooding isn't a problem. But here's the thing. I know from having done so many of these sorts of major projects globally for 30 years, that when we actually design projects, your design parameters should actually consider, again, I've used the Izmit earthquake example, what level of resilience do you want? Are you designing for a 1 in 50-year storm? And storms are usually what we use. Is it a 1 in 50-year storm? Is it maybe a 1 in 100-year storm? A 1 in 250-year storm? Maybe we should begin to start designing for 1 in 1,000-year storms. Because the sort of things we're seeing, maybe it's like Noah's Ark days, biblical times, but the fact is they're here. Science tells us that this climate change thing is not going anywhere in a short space of time, and we have to face that reality. Now, it's like insurance, and God bless insurance, because people don't always appreciate what you do. It's when your car breaks down or has an accident, you now remember that I wish I had insurance. It's the same thing with building climate resilient infrastructure. We also have to focus on climate adaptation and decarbonization. What that basically means in simple English is, look, some of our infrastructure will continue polluting. But if there's a way we can actually convert them where they pollute less, that is also helping reduce emissions. So if I give you an example, in Africa 50 Group, we have a number of plants that we've built. One of the most recent ones went live about maybe the last quarter. And these plants are initially fired with diesel. They're in Senegal. And the reason why is because there isn't a lot of gas. But for those of you who know, Senegal has discovered larger gas fields. And these plants, when the gas comes on board, are convertible to gas. And gas is a cleaner fuel and consequently will make a big difference. So I see that, am I running out of time? Because whoever is controlling has overshot. I need you to go back to slide number 11 if you can, please, in controlling that. Am I on time? Okay. Can I have slide 11 for the audience? Go back, yeah. So look, I want to now put some numbers in context. Again, I'm looking from an Africa perspective, and I will try and translate as best I can into what we're hearing about Nigeria. So the first headline, and these are African Development Bank statistics, the total infrastructure need, this is just the standard stuff, is somewhere between 130 and $170 billion annually. I didn't say for the next 10, 20, or 30 years. I said annually. This is what the AFDB estimated. And even when you look at all the financing available from governments, donors, institutions, and otherwise, there is still a gap of between 68 and $108 billion. When you now think of the impact of climate change, which is an additional amount of money, we'll probably need somewhere between 120 and 150 billion by 2030 just to try and solve these problems. We have to think how we're going to do that. But here's something also very interesting. AFDB also estimated that by the end of 2000, African institutions had something like about $1.8 trillion of assets under management. I think that number is probably more than $2 trillion by now. And these are mainly held in pension funds, insurance funds, sovereign wealth funds, and of course the plethora of banks and other institutions. So that point alone should begin to say there is money on the continent. I'm not saying it's sufficient, but later on we'll talk about how that money can be really helpful to catalyze more investment. The next slide, which has these graphs, is just simply letting you know that against that AFDB measure of 100 billion estimated every year, sorry it's not very clear, we were actually making good progress. In 2018, for the first time, the total financing commitments for infra exceeded 100 billion. And then COVID struck. So unfortunately, what you see is post the 2018 period, it's actually gone downhill again. That doesn't mean it can't come back up. It just means that there is a significant challenge. I'm going to speed up. If we move on the next slide, this one shows you two things. It says who is actually providing that financing and where is that financing going. And what you're going to find is that throughout the years covered by this graph, which is about 6 years, a 6-year horizon, it's actually been governments, African governments, that have funded most of the infrastructure. And we know that African governments generally are struggling on their balance sheets. More so, again, when you look at the impact of COVID and many other things, now we're suffering the impact of the Russian-Ukraine crisis and so on and so forth. So that puts pressure. What is nice to see is when you look at the share on that graph that related to the private sector, we have seen an increase. What it shows is that there is appetite to invest. And so we need to explore that a bit more. If we can move on, oops, okay, I think we're having challenges there. So I want to focus a bit more now on the institutions. If we were able to get on the slide and slide number 14, there I actually go into quite a bit of graphical analysis about who are the providers of finance. Now if you just, okay, there it is. So just simplifying that very complex graph, and I presume that CIBN will make the presentation available to the audience so they can take their time. I don't want to go into it in total, but the key thing is the sources of finances are either, is it equity? Equity takes the most risk, and then you leverage and you bring debt in. And that comes from a variety of sources. There's private equity. So the fund that I'm senior partner of, we're a private equity infrastructure fund. We're happy to take risk. But some people don't. In fact, I often say money is a coward, especially when it's debt, because it wants to be secure, and you don't blame bankers for that either. Because their job is, when they provide finance, they're relying upon us equity investors to go out there, manage the risks, and make sure that those debts are serviced. But when you begin to look through the range of ways that you, as financial institutions, can participate, there are some financial institutions that invest in private equity funds. So that's one way. You can do that too, if you have the appetite for that. There's, of course, the long-term need or the need for long-term senior debt. That's where a lot of commercial banks went. And one thing I have to say with humility and pride is when we did the Lekki Toll Road, I was really pleased. At the time that we did this in 2008, the longest debt tenor, if I recall, in the market was 7 years. That was MTN. It was so humbling to see Nigerian banks, several of them, came in, like the likes of FBN, UBA, Fidelity, if I recall, and one or two others. They actually came in for 12 years tenors, and that stretched the yield curve, if you like. And that shows that within the banking community, there is that vision. And of course, to achieve that, we had to have all the right securities and things in place to protect the downside risk. We also need those who are going to subscribe to infrastructure bonds. That's another way of financing. I will show you in my next slide, if you like, the profile of a typical concession type financing and where that comes in. But I'll tell you this, we have a project in the Africa 50 group in Egypt where we have 6 operational solar power plants generating 400 megawatts, supplying the national grid in Egypt. And these are projects that we actually took, partnering with others, built them from early stage, financed them, then took them to bankability, invested in that, constructed, and they're now operating. In the last quarter, we've now refinanced them, having built it, shown the model works, shown the operations are moving well, and we've raised a $345 million green bond. I believe it was the first in West Africa that's been done. And a lot of institutions piled into that and acquired. So that's a way you can also play. A very important thing that we need is credit enhancement, which helps mitigate against risk. Risk is one of the single biggest reasons why investment does not come into the country and into Africa generally. And I'll talk about that shortly. But here in Nigeria, for example, I'm very proud again to talk about InfraCredit. They provide monoline insurance cover. That's an example of risk mitigation. But we have like African Development Bank willing to provide partial risk guarantees. We have NIGA, part of the World Bank Group, willing to provide political risk insurance. These are the sorts of things that we need. Of course, we need financial derivatives. Sometimes, particularly in our context of FX volatility, interest rate uncertainty sometimes, we need to have hedging instruments, and you can't exist without working capital. So we need that. How many minutes? 10, I'll be done by then. I've got 10 minutes. If I don't finish by 10 minutes, shout me off the stage. So I'm going to do my best to finish. Right, let's go on the next slide very quickly. This one is really important because here, what I try to do is to let you understand that when you look at the start of a project, on the left-hand side from the very, very early stage when it's a concept, you take it through a stage where you get it to a point where you can actually attract the long-term capital you need to make that project constructed. At some point in time, you now reach the point where it's in commercial operation, you start showing the revenues are there, people then get the confidence. In fact, at that point in time, the project cash flows behave like fixed income instruments. That is the reason why in our project in Egypt, like I said, we were able to refinance, raising $345 million with a green bond. So you have to choose. I need that slide back up. It's very important for the institutions because this talks very much about the roles that you will play. Can I have that slide back up? Right. So you have to decide where you play, and I'm going to make some recommendations. I don't expect commercial banks, I don't expect pension funds to bring capital and invest in, it's gone again, to bring capital and invest in the very early stage, where when you look at the bottom of that slide, I also talk about the risk profile. The risk is highest at the development stage. Now we know this because Africa 50 Group, we also have a fund that just does that. Now, why is it the highest risk stage? Very simple. If you do not get to financial close, as in the point where you can now get in all the external long-term equity and debt, it's a wipeout. That money goes. So I'm not going to be asking our pension funds to invest, in projects at that stage. When you now get to the financial close stage, all the capital is there. In theory, the projects have been totally de-risked. That's the process of taking it to bankability. It is safer. The risk profile lowers down. Some investors are happy, some banks, like those I mentioned that came with us on the Lekki Toll Road, they can come in then. But then, and some, especially pension funds, they want a bit more certainty, so they can wait. When construction is done, you're a bit in operations, the cash flows are now proven, then you can come in. and we can also refinance and take investors out. So let's move on. Now, this slide came up. Now I'm into the scale of, here's some ideas. We've talked about PPPs. We've talked about the concession model and how it works. We have the same understanding in terms of our fundamental assumptions of what we acknowledge, agree on, and accept. Look, this is a very simple model based on the concessions, the PPP model, and we're actively right now in engagement with several African countries where they want us to do this for them. Now, the way this works is it focuses on already existing infrastructure. Now, there's a lot of assets. It could be power assets, it could be water assets, it could be God knows what, which governments have tied in a lot of capital in, but unfortunately they are not able, because of their budgetary constraints, to maintain those assets. They don't have the technical capability to actually manage them well. So why not find a private investor who will come take it off your hands and then run it for you, deliver the service, and guess what? Unlocks capital because you're paying back the government, and that capital can then be used to either refurbish existing plants, invest in entirely new infrastructure, which, by the way, by the time you get to the third step, is the starting point of the recycling process again. The point I'm making is that with this, you can literally speaking create a long-term, perpetual cycle of infrastructure investment, simply managing the assets that we already currently have today. This is something that we do recommend. Now, the next slide is really important, because I'm now focused here on why isn't the capital flooding into Africa. And we say, oh, but we're 1.3 billion people. Nigeria, we're 200 million. Some are saying 250 million people. Why is it not coming? Such a huge market, such demand, such obvious need. And I'm saying this from the point of view of both a Nigerian, and proudly so, and also an international investor. Even before I came back to Africa Plays, I was doing this globally, and I've seen it many, many, many years. People knocking at the door. They want to come and do business in our country. They want to come and do business on this continent. Yet still, it feels to me, and I've seen it again live, it's almost like there's a brick wall separating the investor, and then when they finally find a way to climb over the brick wall, there's the biggest, most fearsome, most powerful masquerade you see right behind it. Now, the bravest of them, or maybe the maddest of them, and I count myself amongst that, we stay and we fight it through. But many just say, you don't do, and they just take off. So this list of things, whether it's political risk, inconsistency in policy, inadequate tariff regimes, lack of risk mitigation, maybe financing that is too onerous in terms of the terms and the cost. We need to fix this. And it is not just government alone. Again, I go back to it is all of us. Government needs to set policies. Government needs to be consistent. When you sign a PPP agreement, government must respect the sanctity of contract. But financiers need to play their part as well. Try and understand the projects that you're in, understand the risk profile, underwrite accordingly, be willing to take long tenors, good pricing, and then end users. Look, at the end of the day, if we don't pay for the infrastructure, good utility scale infrastructure, which brings the cost down because of economies of scale, you will pay that multiple of 5 to 8 times with your generator or buying water from Mirua. It's just a simple, proven fact. So, I know that my time is almost done. We can skip to slide number 19. I won't go into detail again, you will get the presentation. The point I'm actually trying to make here is to say this, and I believe this passionately. It is why I remain in the infrastructure space, and I've been so for over 30 years, like I said, globally. And I will keep coming back to Nigeria. I mean, Africa 50, we already invested in Nigeria. We want to do more. It's not always easy to get it done, but we do. The point is, all of these challenges I've talked about, if you look at it, what are you thinking? Is the glass half empty or half full? If you believe the glass is half full, those same challenges can be our very valuable investment opportunities. And so I've just given a non-exhaustive list of many, many things that you can do, be it in power and energy, transport logistics, water sanitation, or in the digital and social sector. The last slide is, I won't go into a lot of detail there, but this is one for Nigeria. And why have I focused on power? It's obvious. Probably it's our single biggest deficit that we need to fill. I think we need to move away from trying to do everything on the national grid. More and more we're seeing decentralized systems. We need to do that. But we need to fix regulation, make sure it's consistent, it's fair, it's transparent, and we need to ensure that tariffs truly are economic. Otherwise, the investment will not come. Let's take advantage of technology. Let's basically do this thing together. I think I'm within my 10 minutes that was left. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.
A resounding applause for Opuyo there. I think when you're a master at your game, you just go on and we just have to listen. I think you just clearly took time to talk about the challenges and highlighted the opportunities that are there for us. Even as we, came through COVID, the positives that are there for us, and to know the impact that some of these gaps can, bring on the economy, such as absence of water and the impact of diseases, and then look at what flooding is doing to us. So not that we're not alone in this, but what is the issue is how are we solving? What are the options? How are we using innovation to fund? How are we changing the approach to funding these kind of capital projects? How are we leveraging inflows? How are we making the economy better for funds to flow in and to use regulation to stabilize so that those who bring in the funds can come in? And how will tariffs work so that these investments can pay back? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think the work is cut out. Those of us who have the takeouts from here, we should get ready and start working on how impact can be felt. Once again, thank you so very much, Mr. Opuyo. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to quickly recognize a lot of our highly distinguished people who have joined us here. The GMD of EcoBank, the former GMD of EcoBank, Mr. Patrick Akinwuton, the MD of FMBN, Mr. Madhu Haman, thank you for joining us. The Group CEO of ARM Holding Company, Ms. Jumoke Ogundari, thank you for joining us. We have here honorables of the Lagos House of Assembly, Honorable Yinka Ogundimu and Honorable Lanre Oshun, you're welcome. We have about 12 honorable commissioners in our midst, thank you for joining us. About 4 vice chancellors of universities, honestly, we appreciate you for joining us here today. We have about 4 rectors of polytechnics in our midst, and at this event, we say thank you for coming. We are about to move on. We have come to that big reason why we are here. Today, 389 awardees are present in this building. That's huge. A warm round of applause for ourselves. We have 22 honorary fellows, 141 elected fellows, 226 honorary senior members, all for the industry. Please, a warm round of applause for yourselves. We need to make this event go live, so once we're done, please take a selfie, post to your social media pages, let everyone know that the industry that matters is shaking today. Please do it today, do it now. Please post your selfies right now. So we have come to that moment. I would like to invite someone who is very special to us, the world registrar himself, the one who taught me all the protocols of this industry. Let me make you laugh. When I first started and I was given my first assignment to MC an event like this, how many years ago? I think 2010. And I go to the podium and I carried the mic and I was about to stop and Sir Awojobi said, hey, calm down. There is order. I said, can you explain to me? He said, oh, you call first the president, chairman of council. I said 1. He said, then there's vice president 1, 2, vice president 3, 4, treasurer, past president, past this, past that. I said, Jesus, am I going to survive this? But he calmly took me through, and we had that event, and nobody knew I was a rookie. Hey, Egbon, thank you again. And so when you have people like this in the industry, I think That is how we build competency in the people coming behind us. So every leader that is here, I hope that there are so many leaders behind you, somewhere in the office, somewhere on the road, because we need to make impact for Nigeria. Please make welcome Sir Sheye Awojobi, PhD FCIB, to do the presentation awardees to the Chairman, Board of Fellows, and Practice License. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for... hold on. I can see, like my colleagues used to say since morning, that we are being economical with our clapping. And I just want to seek this. If you know that you want to do economics or economics with your clapping, I will recommend you to the school of Professor Salami. If you are not going to be too economical and you are happy that you are here for something very important with the retinue of all the men of timber and caliber here, put your hands together. Very, very resounding. Make it more resounding, more resounding, more resounding. You know, it's only in clapping you don't have protocol. Every other thing, when you go by way of protocol, it follows with a clap, isn't it? But today I've decided that you should do all the clapping before the names are being reeled out, like Buki said. So once again, can we put a resounding applause for ourselves? I'm being asked to come and do what we are here to do. And so I'm not going to deliver a speech, and I'm not going to make the protocol take the shine out of why we are here. So just allow me to stand on the existing and very well established protocol. Do you allow me to do that? So put a resounding applause after that. I will therefore resist my protocol to only the people on the top table, and then I will follow. Mr. President and Chairman of Council, Dr. Ken Okpara, the first Vice President, Professor Deji Olanrewaju, FCIB, the second Vice President, Mr. Dele Alabi, FCIB, the special guest that I will call very much later, the National President, National Treasurer, Mrs. Moji Bakare Aseru, FCIB, the past President, all here led by Mr. Femi Ekundayo, FCIB, His Excellency, my governor, my uncle, former governor of Ogun State, and by the grace of God, a distinguished senator in the making, Otumba Gbenga Daniel. You are most welcome, sir. My mentor, my teacher forever, and my boss for life, former Deputy Governor of Central Bank, Alhaji Suleiman Barau, FCIB. My blood sister, my mentor, my auntie, the special guest, Mrs. Mosobelo Olushoga, you are most welcome today. I want to say to all of you that are here, with all of you men of honor, you are most welcome.
We are going to do it in 3 models. The first is the honorary senior members. And I would like to request that all honorary senior members please be upstanding. As you are standing, may I humbly request that you put on your stoles. Not all the honorary fellows, honorary senior members, the chairman, Bank Directors Association, you could be seated. The DG of SEC, please be seated. If you look back, you will see the color is different from the one you are holding. Are we done? May I request that you please bring out your affirmation paper. Bring your affirmation papers out. Please just read after me. I, your names, as an honorary senior member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, hereby affirm that I will respect, promote, and abide by the provisions of the Act, policies, rules, regulations and guidelines of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, as well as adhere strictly to the code of conduct in the Nigerian banking industry, governing members of the institute and the banking profession. I pledge with every sense of responsibility to discharge my professional responsibilities with all sense of honesty, integrity, competence, and uprightness, and to do everything ethically possible to uplift the standards of bankers, the banking profession, and the banking industry at large. So help me God. While you are still standing, may I humbly request the pleasure of the Chairman Board of Fellows and Practice License, Professor Deji Olariwaju, to please be upstanding. Just stand. May I, Sir Dr. Oluseyi Awudobi CIBN, humbly present these members who have been found worthy and elected as honorary senior members of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria to you for presentation to the President and Chairman of Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria for their conferment of the honorary senior membership.
Thank you, Registrar, Chief Executive. The President and Chairman of Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Dr. Ken Opara, FCIB, Chairman of this occasion, sir, distinguished guests of honor, fellows, honorary senior members, associates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I, on behalf of the Board of Fellows and Practice License of the Institute, proudly present to this very distinguished audience these eminent members of the banking profession who have contributed immensely to the Institute, the banking industry, and the profession in general for the conferment of honorary senior membership of the Chartered of Bankers of Nigeria. I so present, sir.
By the powers conferred on me by the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, I, Ken FCIB, President and Chairman of Council, do hereby confer on you all, jointly and severally, the honorary senior membership of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, HCIB, with all rights, privileges, and obligations. A big congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I humbly request the photographers to please, at this point in time, kindly help us clear the gallery. Please, you will take the photographs while we request the awardees to please file out one after the other for the presidential handshake. I'd like to request the office holders to please join Mr. President and the special guest of honor, the chairman, to please. The past president, the former governor, the guest speaker, to please proceed to join Mr. President in doing this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. May we request that all the honorees, awardees be seated, please. We have not ended this. May I humbly request, with all due respect, that those who have just been awarded return to their seats. Kindly let be seated, not yet time for photographs. Once again, I'd like to request that let all of us return back to our seats. I know bankers will do it with a lot of discipline. May we please, if you are adorning any of the stores, if you have just been awarded, no photographs for now, kindly return to your seats. Those who are refusing to listen to the announcement, certificates awarded in learning and character, kindly let us go back to our seats and be seated. Thank you. Can we put our hands together for the president and his team? And of course, for those who have just been awarded the HCIB. It is now time for me to request that all elected fellows, not honorary fellows, elected fellows be upstanding. As you stand, please, may I request that you put on your stoles. Ladies and gentlemen, let me happily inform you that these are people who wrote examinations and then got ACIB, and after the requisite time, they became electable to become fellows. Some of these people standing are not just becoming fellows, but they wrote that exam we call Chartered Banker MBA. And that has made them to even have 3 certificates in one. They acquired the MBA. They also, that MBA is from the #1 University of Finance in UK, the Bangor University, and they also got the certificate as associate members of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, and at the same time also obtained the associateship of the oldest institute of bankers in the world, the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Scotland. I have among these Dr. Ada Udensi, the MD CEO of Titan Trust, is one of these people. I said it earlier on before I commenced this assignment, that if you are economical with your applause, I will recommend you to the school of Professor Doi Salami. To know that clapping is an investment. As you clap for others, you will reap your investment. So may I request that you put your hands together. Very, very tough. Thank you. Please bring out your affirmation papers. And kindly read after me. I, your names, as a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, hereby affirm that I will respect, promote, and abide by the provisions of the Act, policies, rules, regulations, and guidelines of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, as well as adhere strictly to the code of conduct in the Nigerian banking industry, governing members of the institute and the banking profession. I pledge with every sense of responsibility to discharge my professional responsibilities with all sense of honesty, integrity, competence, and uprightness, and to do everything ethically possible to uplift the standards of bankers, the banking profession, and the banking industry at large. So help me God. May I humbly request the pleasure of the Chairman Board of Fellows, Professor Deji Olanrewaju, as I, Oluseye David Awojobi, Registrar's Chief Executive, presents to you these distinguished associates of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, whose applications for election into fellowship of the Institute have been approved by the Governing Council for presentation to Mr. President and Chairman of Council for the conferment of the fellowship.
Thank you, Registrar. The President Chairman of Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Dr. Ken, FCIB, Chairman of this official occasion, distinguished guests and of honor, fellows, honorary, senior members, associates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. May I, on behalf of the Board of Fellows and Practice License of the Institute, proudly present to you, sir, these very distinguished, associates of the Institute who have contributed immensely to the Institute, the banking industry, and the profession in general for the conferment of fellowship of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, FCIB. I so present you.
By the powers conferred on me by the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN, I, Ken Opara, PhD, FCIB, President and Chairman of Council, do hereby confer on you jointly and severally the Fellowship of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, FCIB, with all rights, privileges, and obligations. A very big congratulations.
May I request the pleasure of the office holders and our erudite leaders on this high table to please join Mr. President as he presents the certificate and scrolls, while the Secretariat brings them out in order. Please, let's be very fast with it. Time is well spent.
Number one and nothing less. Lead me to my destiny. I have waited patiently. I have vision, though I believe. I know I can count on me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up. Here we go, it's getting close. Now it's just who wants it most. It's just life, that's how it is. Cause we have our strengths and weaknesses. Oh, I have vision, can't you see? I'm on the move, make way for me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up. Here we go, it's getting close. Now it's just who wants it most. It's just life, that's how it is. Cause we have our strengths and weaknesses. Oh, I have vision, can't you see? I'm on the move, make way for me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up. Here we go, it's getting close. Now it's just who wants it most. It's just life, that's how it is. Cause we have our strengths and weaknesses. Oh, I have vision, can't you see? I'm on the move, make way for me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up. For the job, and when I fall down, for the job, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, for the job, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, for the job, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself up. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up, for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions. Stand up. Here we go, it's getting close.
All right.
Now it's just who wants
Thank
it
you.
most. It's just like that's how it is. Cause we have our strengths and weaknesses. Oh, I have vision, can't you see?
Thank you.
Make way.
May we
Stand up for the champions.
May we kindly return to our seats. We want to thank our special guest, the former governor of Ogun State, Otumba Agbenga Daniel, who is taking his leave for now. Let's give him a round of applause. His chief of staff is one of those people becoming fellow. His chief of staff is becoming a fellow. Let's give the former governor of Ogun State a round of applause as he's taking his leave. While all awardees, there is no awardee that is expected to be out of this hall now. Whether you are taking HCIB or FCIB, please kindly remain seated. Secretariat, please help us bring in those awardees that are outside. We have this last one to do. Any awardee that is standing out of your seat, the certificates are not in the scroll given to you. Take note, and that is where we will take note of how you have abided by or complied with the rules. I can see an awardee at the back of the hall. Mr. Olagundoye, can you help us tell the awardee to please join his seat, even if he's a National Secretariat staff? Dr. Adigun, please, let's be seated, let's be seated, let's be seated. Those who are standing, please be seated, and please, let's clear the gallery. Please, all awardees should remain seated. Some are still standing discussing. Can you please, maybe we need to increase the volume of the speaker. All right. I got an information that I must let you understand, I must make available to you. Earlier in the morning, when there was the discussion or engagement with our honorary fellows, something came up, and I'd like to make a comment on this. The institutional support for capacity building is sine qua non to our sustainability in the banking industry. I'd like to tell you that among the group of people who just became fellows, Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation has the largest number. Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation saw the opportunity and invested, even as we still speak, in the capacity building of the rank and file. And I can tell you that today, not only that those people have qualified with 3 certificates, MBA, ACIB, Nigeria, ACIB, Scotland, but today they are getting to the highest level of their career in the banking industry. Let's put our hands together for them. I must also let you know that this certification and capacity building also transcended family affairs. And I have a husband and wife here today who both did that same CBMBA and they are becoming fellow here today. The Adeshewus, can you stand up for recognition? If it's not in this room now, it means that the council may have to look at it again. Whether that certificate is a marriage certificate for the banking industry. But let me tell you that several others. So the next set that we want to do, that is actually one of the points that must be touched. On this note, I'd like to start with the next group. This next group are the movers and the shakers of the banking industry. They have jointly and severally contributed immensely to the development of banking and finance, not only in Nigeria and not only in Africa, but they are global reference points as individuals. They have not only contributed to the banking sector, they have also contributed to banking education and knowledge. They have not only done that, they have contributed and they still continue to contribute jointly and severally to the Nigerian economy and the world economy. I guess you should not be economical with your applause. It is on this note, and on behalf of the Governing Council, headed by the President and Chairman of Council, Dr. Ken Opara, that I will humbly not do this just as a group, but individually, for them to understand that it is a worthy cause. I'd like to invite to the podium first, to be upstanding, Mr. Lamido Yuguda. Mr. Lamido Yuguda, very briefly, is the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission in Nigeria. He has over 3 decades of experience in central banking, accounting, finance, economics and investment management, and he has spent 32 years at the Central Bank of Nigeria in various roles, including leading for 16 years a team that successfully managed reserve assets that grew to tens of billions of United States dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Alhaji Lamido Yuguda, who has humbly contributed to the Institute. He was in research, he was a board member of the Center for Financial Studies, and so many other things. Alhaji Yuguda, you can please adorn your stove while I call the next person. I'd like to also humbly request that we have Mr. Mustafa M. Ibrahim to please be upstanding. To save time, let me quickly say that he is an executive director with the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation. But I must tell you that he chaired the investigating panel of the Subcommittee on Ethics and Professionalism of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, where ethics and professionalism, customer protection, and of course, those who are heads within the banking industry were brought to fore. And he maintained that position till he became executive director of NDIC. Alhaji Ibrahim, you may adore your stone. When this name is mentioned, any student of mathematics would think the gentleman has come into this hall. But he is no less than the same person. The man who sat as the first managing director of AMCON in Nigeria, Mr. Mustafa Chikeobi. Currently, Mr. Mustafa Chikeobi is the chairman of the Bank Directors Association. So you can say that the entire bank directors in Nigeria are being honored today. And of course, he is the current chairman of Fidelity Bank PLC. Mr. Chikeobi, you can please adore your stove. I'd like to also request that Mr. Joda Ahmed Abubakar be upstanding. Mr. Joda Ahmed Abubakar is the managing director of Taj Bank, and of course, not just managing director, the founder of the second non-interest bank in Nigeria. I think that tells more about the caliber of this person and the role he has played in the Institute in several committees. And currently, he is the co-chair of the 2023 Annual Banking and Finance Conference that you all look forward to. Mr. Joda, please, you can adore your stone. I'd like to request that Mr. Wole Adeniyi be upstanding. Mr. Wole Adeniyi, currently the MD of Stanbic IBTC, was the chairman of the funding committee of the 2021 Banking and Finance Conference. And in its entirety, as it stands, he is a contributor to the growth of the Institute. Mr. Wole Adeniyi, you can please adore your stone. I have also the pleasure to ask humbly that Mr. Innocent Ike, HCIB, please be upstanding. During the 2022 dinner that was very successful, this gentleman threw all his weight behind the success of the program. In the Banking and Finance Conference, in 2022, he did same. And of course, in his own private capacity, until a few days back, he was the managing director of Polaris Bank. Mr. Innocent Ike, please, you may adore your story. I have been calling men. I am sure you will know I'm a very gender sensitive person. So I request Mrs. Ireti Samuel Ogu, HCIB, to please. In our capacity as the managing director of Citibank, you will know the role that someone of this nature has played locally and internationally. And one of the women that we showcase very highly in the industry. Some few months ago, she appeared on the APWB platform. And I can tell you the results of that mentoring program and sharing experience has gone a very long way. Mrs. Samuel Ogu, please adorn your story. I have online the erudite managing director of Fidelity Bank PLC. She's here with us virtually, but all her heart is here physically. She is the current managing director of Fidelity Bank PLC, where the president and chairman of council also is an executive director. I can tell you that in terms of mentoring, in terms of contributions to the growth of the CIBN, she is a first-class member. Mrs. Neka Oyali Ibe, HCIB. You may adore your toes if it's with you there virtually. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Oyali Ibe. I request the Mr. Olufemi Bakri, HCIB, to please be upstanding. In his contribution, he was the one who received, when they talk of recolonization or our own re-expansion to the global community, Mr. Olufemi Bakri received the team of the then president and chairman of council to rejuvenate and establish the London branch of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, and he provided the secretariat as the then executive director, FCMB. And today, he is still a member of the strategic planning committee of the institute in the last 4 years. Mr. Femi Bakri is the MD Paralex Bank, the first microfinance bank to be converted into a full commercial bank. Mr. Femi Bakri, please adorn your story. Please watch out. Something is coming up. Mrs. Oluyemisi Edun, HCIB, to be upstanding. Mrs. Yemisi Edun is a mentor within the space of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria Mentoring Committee. Of course, she sits currently as the managing director of FCMB. And in our own capacity, a lot of capacity development trainings had passed through her, heavily supporting. Thank you very much. You can adore your story. Watch out, something is coming up. May I request Mr. Bayo Rotimi to please be upstanding. Mr. Bayo Rotimi is an erudite banker. Sitting currently atop of Greenwich Merchant Bank, Mr. Bayo Rotimi is an active contributor to everything CIBN does, including its membership development committee. You can adore a store. What is going to happen is that the three of them are products of FCMB. And there is another one of them that I'm going to invite to the upstanding. Because she's an economist, she pursued another senior economist and sat with that economist. So, Mrs. Bukola Smith, to please be upstanding. In terms of contribution, you cannot overemphasize it. But let me tell you that she's currently the chairman of the 2023 Annual Banking and Finance Conference. I repeat, chairman, 2023 Consultative Committee on Banking and Finance. So look up to her and look forward to what you will get. This is not to remove the fact that she is a member of the Bankers Committee Subcommittee on Ethics and Professionalism. She is also the chair of the Mentoring Committee of the Institute. Mrs. Bukola Smith is the current MD of FSDH Merchant Bank. Please, you can adore your store. Also a product of FCMB. In capacity building, since I've known her, and for the number of years I've worked with the Institute, she's got a distinction. Mrs. Kafilat Araoye, HCIB. When it was so difficult for others to accept that the competency framework must reside and must be driven by the Chartered Institute of Bankers, she stood like a rock of Gibraltar. And today, I am sure you are seeing the work. Mrs. Kafilat Araoye, member Education Committee, member Competency Framework, member Human Capital Managers of Banks. In fact, a founder of that association since 2001. And today, managing director of one and the third non-interest bank in Nigeria, Lotus Bank. Thank you very much. You can adore your store. I have Mr. Oluwatobiloba Lawal. Many parts he has played. He retired from the banking sector to himself, but a golden fish has no hiding place. Went into government, still in government, but doing what banking has taught him to do. So Oluwatobiloba Lawal today is the MD of Lagos Building and Investment Company. Please, you may adore your store. The mortgage industry is waxing stronger, and so we have Mr. Korede Adedayo. Mr. Korede Adedayo is a member of the, please be upstanding, sir. Is a member of the board of directors of the CIBN Press. He led the mortgage institutions in collaboration with the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria to the first conference of the Institute in Atlanta, United States of America. And today he sits as the managing director of First Mortgage Trustees. Please, you may adore your store. Ladies and gentlemen, may I humbly request the pleasure of Professor Doyin Salami to please be upstanding and give a round, very resounding applause. For as long as I've worked with the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, he has remained one of the pillars of strategic planning and impact for the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Professor Odoyin Salami will do it and tell you the fact, what is the role that the Institute should be playing. He has done it again this morning, and so the entire academic world will believe that it's only in the academic, but we in the Nigerian economy, in the banking industry, and of course with the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, we are proud of this erudite scholar. Please adore your stores. Mr. Taiwo Otiti, HCIB. Those who know the heritage and the historic perspective of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, we know that this is another heir apparent of the Otiti family. One of the very few individuals who have supported the information communication technology transformation of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, and is doing it very quietly without anyone realizing where the strength lies. Please, you can adore your stone, Mr. Taiwo Otiti. We have online joining us Mr. Agada Akoshi. Is unavoidably absent, but when it came into fore that the fintech must be recognized, Agada Akoshi, HCIB, played a major role as the head of the fintech group, and it brought the entire fintech ecosystem into the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, especially through the Banking and Finance Conference in the last 3 years. Mr. Agada Akoshi, you can put on your store as you are there virtually. We know it's with us. Thank you. And let me also humbly request Mr. Mike Ogbalo III, HCIB, who flew in today from Egypt, directly from Afrexim, from Cairo. He flew in. May I request that you be upstanding, please? All right. In 2020, this gentleman developed a card that is as good as any credit card you can talk about, as your card to enter CIBN dinner in 2020. And not only that, committedly, as the managing director of PAPS, he signed the first memorandum of agreement on September 13, 2022, to make Africa, through Nigeria and through CIBN, imbibe the culture of the payment system that will give us that we need by way of independence. Mr. Ogbalo, thank you very much. You can adore your story. I have Professor Sheriff Dean Taylor, Banking and Finance Conference, or Banking and Finance as a course at Olabisi Onabanjo University wouldn't have come into being. This gentleman was appointed as the first person to drive banking and finance in that institution. The institute benefited immensely in 1998 by the dint of acceptance of a linkage program that signed an MOU with the institute for the linkage program for those who are having a CIB without first degree to come in, and those who are running first degree to come out with a CIB. And that initiative produced the first 210 graduates in year 2000. Yours sincerely was one of the beneficiaries. Professor Taylor, you can adore your story. For 36 years in that school, we can feel its impact. And economically, in this country, we recognize you. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I have one of my very best friends internationally, Mr. Simon Thompson, the Chief Executive of Chartered Institute of Bankers Scotland. I'm sure he's with us online. Thank you, sir. Mr. Thompson is online. He will join us. He facilitated the CBN with the likes of the then past President Laoye Jayola, and then we signed that MOU in Bangor. Today, Bangor has produced so many. They tagged it reprofessionalizing banking. Thank you, Simon, for being there. He's currently the coordinator of United Nations Academy for Sustainable Banking, which he believes strongly in. He's a partner. Thank you. And permit me to say that I omitted someone, Mr. Benjamin Fakule, the Director of Finance, Central Bank of Nigeria. Is coming up. Mr. Fakule is currently a member of the Finance and General Purpose Committee. He has been there for years. Every success of that committee, you can also take him as one of the best. In 2022, he provided a facility for all the Gen Zs that came for the conference in Abuja. Mr. President, these are the honorary fellows. May I humbly request, first of all, on a note of apologies, I've been keeping Alhaji Lamido Yuguda standing. I've been keeping the chairman board of Bank Directors Association standing. I've been keeping all of you standing. But I think you deserve it. Give yourselves a round of applause. As you bring out your affirmation papers. Bring out your affirmation papers. May I request that you please say after me. I, your name, as an honorary fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, hereby affirm that I will respect, promote, and abide by the provisions of the Act, policies, rules, regulations, and guidelines of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, as well as adhere strictly to the code of conduct in the Nigerian banking industry, governing members of the institute and the banking profession. I pledge, with every sense of responsibility, to discharge my professional responsibilities with all sense of honesty, integrity, competence and uprightness, and to do everything ethically possible to uplift the standards of bankers, the banking profession, and the banking industry at large. So help me God. May I humbly request the pleasure of the Chairman Board of Fellows, Professor Deji Olanrewaju FCIB, as I, with great pleasure, sir, present to you these distinguished personalities who have fulfilled all conditions set by the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria for honorary fellowship of the Institute with all rights, privileges, and obligations. Thank you.
Chief.
The President, sir, the Chairman of the Council of the Bankers of Nigeria, Dr. Ken Opara, FCIB, chairman of this occasion, sir, distinguished guests of honor, fellows that are here present in this hall, honorary senior members, and also associate distinguished ladies and gentlemen. May I, on behalf of the Board of Fellows and the practice license of this great institute, proudly present to this very distinguished order these eminent members of the banking profession who have contributed immensely to the institute, the banking industry, and the profession in general for the conferment of honorary fellowship of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, FCIB, and so presents.
I'd like to formally request first that you help us to appreciate the guest speaker. May I invite Mr. Opuyo to please step forward. Thank you. I'm waiting for all the awardees to be complete. That's why I'm just doing this. May I request the chairman, Alhaji Suleiman Barrow, to please step forward. May I also request the special guest of honor, Mrs. Osu Bello Olushoga, to please step forward. Thank you, Mr. President. As you are standing, may I humbly invite all honorary fellows to please step forward and take a group photograph with Mr. President. All honorary fellows, please step forward. Malam Lamido Yuguda, Mr. Chikobi, please. Yes, kindly step up stage. All honorary fellows. All honorary fellows, Mr. Mike Ogalu, please.
I have waited patiently. I have vision, though I believe. I know I can count on me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions, stand up. For the champions, for the champions, stand up. Stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Here we go, it's getting close.
May I ask the office holders to please join? The office holders to please join. First Vice President, please. First Vice President. First Vice President. Second Vice President. The National Treasurer.
Champions, the champions, stand up. For the champions, for the champions, stand up. Stand up, stand up. For the champions, for the champions, stand up. Stand up, stand up. To be the best, number one and nothing less. Lead me to
Thank you.
destiny.
Thank you. You can please You may please return to your seats. Thank you, DJ. Thank you, DJ. Thank you. Please, I'd like to quickly announce that all banks that are here, and you want to take photographs with your MD, please stay behind. Specifically, FCMB alumni that wants to take photograph, please remain behind. So let the president go back to his seat, please. Photographers, please permit president to go back. Mr. President, we'd like you to be on your seat. Thank you. Mr. President, please. Mr. President, please. FCMB alumni, quickly, if you have to do this now, quickly. Very, very quickly with president, quickly. Only, no. All FCMB alumni, quickly, please. Sir, are you here, sir? Sir, are you part of FCMB? Thank you very much, photographers. If you don't take it in the next 1 second, Mr. President will leave. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. We would like you back on your seat, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Can we please return back? Can we? Professor Ajibola, thank you very much. We want you back on your seat. Thank you. We want you back on your seat. Thank you. Thank you. Let me quickly call on 2 gentlemen. Can we have our seats, please? Can we have our seats, please? We want to now round up, and I'd like to first call on Madam Lamido Yuguda to speak briefly on behalf of the awardees. Very briefly. On behalf of the awardees. Let's give him a round of applause. Please, let's have our seats. After him, we will have Mr. Chikobi to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and distinguished members of Council of the CIBN and distinguished body of past presidents. I want to say a big thank you on behalf of our colleagues, the awardees today, on all the various categories of awards, to the Chartered Institute of Bankers, providing us worthy of this award. We are aware that to whom much is given, much is also expected. So we have responsibilities, by being fellows of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, and I can assure you, as earlier noted, in the morning, that we are all prepared and ready to take up this responsibility of really contributing even more to the institute, and to the greatness of our dear country. The theme of today's investiture ceremony, the financing of infrastructure deficit and the role that financial institutions need to play, is a very important one. And I really appreciate our guest speaker for the insights that he shared with us. we all know that government finances have been dwindling. Oil revenues have actually been coming down. A lot of production losses. So the private sector has to step forward to actually help the government finance critical infrastructure. But before that can be done, the policy environment that will be important for infrastructure investment to thrive in Nigeria has to be put in place. So I think it is our collective responsibility, both the CIBN and the capital market that I represent, to come together to see where the gaps are. The gap is not only in infrastructure, it's also in policy. And we need to actually look at where those gaps are and advise and advocate for better policies for infrastructure. So I think I would just want to say thank you to the Institute for also making it possible for me to reunite with my boss, with my sister, most who I've not seen for so many years now, and to my friends, Jane, who actually pulled me to the service of the Institute. Frankly, I was not very, very active in the service of the Institute, but during his presidency, he made sure that I was actually co-opted into many committees, and I say thank you very much, my dear friend. Thank you very much. And to Dr. Salami also, who is also an awardee today. And to all the awardees today, I say congratulations for the awards, and I wish you, all the best. Thank you very much.
We have a round of applause for everyone that's still left within this hall. Thank you for sitting through. Congratulations again. And as we round up quickly, I'd like to call on Sasha Awojabi, PhD, FCIB, again to give us the appreciation remarks. Again, is the Registrar Chief Executive, Sasha Awojabi.
Thank you very much. I know it's very difficult to do a vote of time when people are busy already taking off. But permit me to just say that we must give glory to God Almighty, the author and finisher of our faith. To him, all honor remains forever. So if you believe that it's God that deserves all the honor and thanksgiving, put your hands together to say, thank you, Almighty God. Very resounding one to Almighty God. Thank you so much, Mr. President and Chairman of Council, the office holders. We want to say thank you to you for allowing this to take place. Without your approval, nothing we can do. Again, I'd like to thank the chairman for accepting without any hassles. Alhaji Suleiman Barao, we are happy to see you and we are happy to associate with you every time as a great ambassador and fellow. Thank you so much, sir. To our special guest of honor, she was saying that they called me mother or mommy of bankers. I said you are a great grandmother of many professionals. Atimo, you are a great leader. Thank you so much, man. Let's put our hands together for Atimo. And of course to our guest speaker. Thank you so much, sir. The great job you are doing in this country and you are doing in Africa and across the world. We appreciate it. Mr. Fuyo Okorifoma, thank you so much. Thank you for accepting without even giving us any hassle, and with apologies that you were airborne when our messages were coming in. But immediately you saw it, you said, you will do it. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. To our past presidents, this is a mustard seed that you sow and you are reaping it by way of oak tree. Led by Mr. Femi Kundayo here today, we want to thank all of you, Mr. Laoye Jayola, Dr. Sheikh Waino, OFR, FCIB, Professor Ajimola, thank you so much. Dr. Olowu, thank you so much. And through you, we thank all past presidents. God bless you. To our governing council members that are here, we really want to say a very big thank you to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have so many professional bodies here represented. The president of ICANN is here. The president of ICSAN is here. The president of CIBN is here. And a lot of other sister professional bodies. Thank you to all of you. Thank you so much to all of you. We want to thank all bankers that are here, all the banks that supported this program, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation. We say big thank you to you. To all the awardees and their families, all the families that are here, thank you very much. Thank you very much. To our gentlemen of the press, we want to thank you too. And most importantly, we want to thank the management and staff of CIBN. Where is the registrar designate? Mr. Kimorakio. Registrar designate, please, where are you? Ladies and gentlemen, help me to put your hands together for this gentleman. That is the man that I'm handing over the baton of this to from today. Thank you, thank you. He led the management to do this human job. Thank you, and God bless you all. Nigerian policeman, thank you very much. Our caterers, thank you. And Madam, what's your role now? Is it Kope or MC? Bukola, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Another round of applause if you can. Those of us inside here on this side have not started eating. So please, can I have your attention so that we can finally close? We have indeed had a very beautiful event today. We have celebrated excellence, and they say that when you walk in distinction, even a photocopier cannot copy that uniqueness that you have. And I think we have celebrated uniqueness here today. So thank you everyone for your contribution to the industry. We will now take the closing prayer before the CIBN anthem and then the national anthem. So to do the honors of giving the closing prayers, I'd like to call on Ibrahim, the ED Operations, NDIC, and a current awardee. Ibrahim, please come forward for the closing prayer. Please come forward for the closing prayer. Thank you. A round of applause for him. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Let us praise the name of the Lord. Oh Allah, as we conclude this event, it's a prayer that every one of us will return to his destination in peace, and wishing all of you a journey mercies. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, the band, can we have, sorry, our sound studio, can we have the CIBN anthem before the national anthem? CIBN anthem, please. Thank you very much. The band's national anthem, please. Thank you very much, sir. All members of the top table, members of the Governing Council, thank you very much. And it's a wrap. We look forward to next year when many more accomplished people will be recognized. Thank you for your time. And it's good night and goodbye. Colonel Afia.